Greetings, Mind Crafters, and welcome to another Mindcraft episode on this glorious day. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am so super pumped to talk about uh, ways to make whatever you're doing easier. And I'll tell you, I've gone on a Greg McGowan jag before, and I'm back on there because his first book, Essentialism, had me right away. And as I mentioned, I'm in a mastermind group, and they swear by both of these books, Essentialism and then Effortless. And I'm really been locked into the one that with the title Effortless because, like many people in their midlife, I'm a fabulous 58, and I think I'm only allowed to say midlife for another 2 years. Well, who cares? Who wrote the rule? I can say it as long as I want. Anyway, I think that's what the official skinny on the street is. But anyway, many of us, and now you don't have to be a seasoned person. You can have a passion project in your 20s or 30s or 40s. And also, this episode doesn't have to be about doing a passion project. It can be, regular work stuff or something you're working on at home or whatever. But these tips are incredibly emphasis on incredibly valuable. And these may not be in order. I'm just going to kind of, I enjoy having a fluid conversation. Plus, as I explained to my in-person Minecrafters, especially since I've mostly 18-year-olds, and sometimes I have juniors and seniors and sophomores and such, but mostly I'm getting them right out of high school, and they're used to being very linear. And I kind of explained to them from a cognitive psychological standpoint, when when the conversation is flowing, it's important to stay with it because I'm not talking about getting tangential and off track, but as long as you're, addressing whatever the topic is, it makes more sense to stay with it and not to say, oh, we got to go back to question 7. And then they laugh. But the same is true for us, having this conversation on these, or these conversations on these podcast episodes. Same thing. Plus, I'm not linear anyway, in case you didn't figure that out. Definitely a web thinker, but the conversation, when it flows smoothly, not only better for your working memory and memory retention, I think, but also more enjoyable. So anyway, one of the first things Greg talks about with you know with a project, again, it can be your regular profession, your regular job, or it can be, a passion project, or it doesn't even have to be work related. It can be something personal. I'm going to stick with the passion project slash work examples because it's easier, honestly, and I'm in it right now, which makes it just supernatural, just organic, just that word is so overused. Let's just say so natural and free flowing. So to simplify, and I think we know that in life in general, less is more. This is one that has really helped me. And I tell you, I have an example that was just like 2 days ago. And I was reading this book and I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing how the universe operates that way. You kind of get those little nuggets that you need. You don't know you need them until you see them. And then it's like this light bulb goes on. But to simplify the steps, because he says, Greg McGowan says that the simplest steps are the ones you don't take. And he also says, no matter how simple the step, it's easier to take no step. So if there's a way to, trim the fat, I can't think of a better way to say that, in whatever steps it is to the project you're working on, whether it's a work or a passion project or a household project or whatever, simple is better than complicated, but no step is better than simple. So if you have 9 steps to something and you can, slice, you know, 3 of them off, the whole process will be better. And we're not talking about, obviously, maybe it's not obvious, so we'll just say it. Slicing a step that's essential. Obviously, you want to keep the essential. Greg McGowan's whole first book is called Essentialism. That's actually what the goal is to home in on what's absolutely necessary, but not just to keep a simple step because it's simple. You can completely get rid of it, eradicate it. It's better. So my example was I think I was setting up a payment system in my new sexy website for the project I'm working on, one of the projects I'm working on, and there were like 4,000 steps, mildly exaggerated, yes. And I'm thinking this can't be that hard. And in this day and age, it was so nuts, especially somebody with my wiring, being a fast minder. Anything that involves an instruction manual or anything is absolutely not for me. It just isn't. And this wasn't an instruction manual, it was online, but man, it just could have been way simpler. They didn't need, it should have just been click here, download this, done. Wait to hear from us. It really could have been 2 steps, not 9. And it was, and when somebody, especially someone who's got executive functioning issues, sees that page, it's overwhelming. So if think about that, if that's steps to do something that's leading to you making money, you want to change that stuff fast, because this, a lot of people, especially in today's day and age with our attention span shrinking, not just mine but neurotypicals, you want that stuff to be simpler, because you can lose a potential client or customer by having way too much busyness going on. So, the next logical step really is to ask yourself, what are the minimum steps required for completion? And I have to be super clear. When I first read this, I'm like, oh, because I'm 58 and I have a killer work ethic, and so does my husband. And we were, our generation was really conditioned that way, which is quite different than the Gen Zers for sure. I mean, it's just different. And we were, we've been conditioned that you've got to kill yourself. You've got to stay later than the boss or your fellow colleagues, or your job's not that important, or you don't care that much, or you're not invested, when you can really just be more efficient, more do things more efficiently and with less efforting, and leave at the same time, and even get having better results, actually better results. And so that's what Greg McKeown's book is about. So so this fits in with the first one we talked about, simplify. Minimum steps required for completion. You might need to write that stuff down, because I think clarity happens when we write things down. And then, Greg kind of states the obvious. In order to succeed at something, you have to get it done. And he says, he really kind of weaves his essentialist lifestyle into his effortless book, which is great because they go together like peas and carrots. And he says, not everything needs the extra mile. And so, again, in A Fabulous 58, I've really had to work through this, because, our generation was just, I'm a very fast paced person anyway, but very go, 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 produce, produce, produce. Even the smallest of things, changing, putting new Kleenex in the box in the bathroom has to be a whole huge endeavor that's glitchless. No. And that's kind of the point. And he's also super clear about, he's not talking about the essential things. And I think he uses the example of a surgeon taking the extra step when she's already operating on someone, and then sees, kind of nips something in the bud, where it could have spread, or there could be an infection or whatever. Maybe that wasn't part of the original plan, but there it is right in front of her. And so before she, stitches the person back up and closes shop, she goes the extra mile to, prevent further injury and discomfort and all that stuff, and maybe even lengthen the person's life. Who knows? We're not talking about that, obviously, because the essentials, in fact, what we're homing in on, and trimming the fat on things that just are not necessary, which leaves way more energy, way more space to focus on the essentials, when we get rid of the stuff we just plain and simply don't need. Then Greg uses an example of Steve Jobs when he had this is now since uh, old now, old news with the iDVD. But at the time, his team was coming up with this, how to burn music and movies and digital photo files and all that stuff, and onto their computers, and onto a physical, stored on their computers onto a physical DVD. And so the team got together, and they had, this streamlined, clean, version of how to do all this, and they thought that their boss would be like blown away by it. And only thing is that it would need like in an exaggerated sense, like 1,000-page user manual. So, I guess it was good, but it was just super complicated. So as the story goes, Steve Jobs walked up to the whiteboard, drew a rectangle, and he said something to the effect of, "Here's the new application. It's got one window. You drag your video into the window, then you click the button that says burn. That's it. That's what we're going to make." So super simple. And people want simple. And it's interesting because Greg uses an example also that I use in my Minecraft class frequently. When students are ready to do when they do their midterm presentations and also their pay it forward presentations at the end of Minecraft. I don't personally teach with PowerPoints because it causes cognitive competition. However, when there are presentations, that's sort of the exception. So when students do this, especially the high achievers, the really high rollers, want to pack those slides with all kinds of text and pictures and busy, 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 and all the more text they have, the more sources they have to cite, and it's packed. And so we have this talk, and I say, there won't be points, taken away from all that text. You certainly have the freedom to do that. I asked them to think about when they're in the audience, they're in the classroom, and they're looking up at the presentation. I know as a professional person, I've seen a bunch of presentations that just absolutely stick pins in my prefrontal cortex. But anyway, so I said, pretend like you're in the audience. What do you want to take from that? Forget the whole presentation, just that slide. The slide that the team puts up, because in reality, you're going to maybe take 1 point, maybe two tops, probably just one. And so you want minimal text. You got to cite it, obviously, and you want a picture that maybe goes with the text, and keep it super simple, because the thing with the cognitive competition and death by PowerPoint is the brain can only process one thing at a time and do one thing at a time. So the people that say, "Oh, I'm such a good multitasker," well, you can say, "No, you're really not." And so the reason I don't use PowerPoint to teach is because we can't we can't we can't see what they put on the slide and listen to the person at the same time. What that is a quick shift in attention. So either we're missing what they have on the slide or we're missing what they're saying, which is why I don't use it. So big presentations at universities and things, you kind of have to, but I keep it as simple, simple, simple as possible. What would I want to take per slide? Just pick one thing and keep it as easy on the eyes as you can possibly do it. And this is the way. I mean, it really is less is more in every sense of the phrase, because and think about how it is more, because that person, when you have one simple point per slide, is actually going to keep it versus blasting them with all the text and they leave with nothing. And I'll just give you a couple more because honestly, we could go on for a while here. But he talks about starting with rubbish, and I'll tell you, because I'm in addition to the one project I'm ready to launch soon, like in about a week and a half, I'd say. I'm also working on a book, and I temporarily put that aside to do what's essential, which is my other passion project. And now I'm back to the book. And so, gosh, this is such valuable advice. And I've written 3 books. They were a while ago. I'm super excited about the one I'm writing now. I remember way back when. I don't even remember who said it to me. But don't wait to have a whole Saturday or definitely a whole weekend, or that you're waiting because you've got to write 3 chapters, and because you're not going to get the book written that way, probably, because it just doesn't work that way. And so he says, be willing to start with rubbish, and it was specifically with writing. And this can be certainly fill in the blank with something else you're working on. It can be you're doing some interior decorating in your house because you just want to. I mean, you can always paint over something. Who cares, right? You can also swap out the curtains. You can undo most things, really, if you really want to. And he says, start with rubbish. Like, just throw up on the paper. Forget about grammar. Forget about complete sentences. Forget about whatever you scratched out. Forget about finding the exact synonym that works for that sentence because the word you chose doesn't work. Forget all that. Just throw it up on the paper. And this is the most efficient, actually, and fastest way to get a book, written than trying to wait for some big burst, because that just probably isn't going to happen. You might have one, but if that's your routine where you're going to expect that to happen, forget about it. Just forget about it. And then, um, so the rubbish thing also rolls into what Greg calls a zero draft approach, which is basically just, again, just throwing it up on paper without worrying, about any of it, the grammar or anything. And so many people just give up way too soon because they're looking for, the perfect chapter, even the perfect paragraph. So ridiculous. And I know after writing, and I've written a ton of articles for Psychology Today, and often I write the intro last. I definitely did with my dissertation. I did all the research, and I might have jotted a few things down, but I didn't really write the beginning until I knew what. In order to write about what's coming, you have to write what's coming first, really, because otherwise, how do you write an intro? Because once you start writing the book, at least for me, the book went in a different direction each time, because it just does. You're inspired. It goes this way, it goes that way. So I'm a person that writes the intro last, actually. And then this is one thing I was just hearing. Lastly, it was somebody besides Greg. It might have even been on Instagram. Come to think of it, actually. But anyway, Greg talks about slow is smooth and smooth is fast, and this person, it must be the universe, just knew that this is what I was ready to hear and needed to hear right now, because I am such a fast paced, run with it, burst of passion, impulsive, just total tunnel vision, block it out, write the article, and then all of a sudden it's dark and I don't know where the day went, kind of thing. And how slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And this person I saw wherever it was on social media said the same thing. The fastest way, it's kind of that classic tortoise and hare story, that really the fastest way to get anything done is to slow it down. It sounds so counterintuitive. It's been a huge challenge for me. And in fact, I'm doing it right now, because usually when I write a Psychology Today article, I do it in one sitting. It's just done. Sit down, hammer it out, and it's done. And this is kind of a little experiment for me, because I was inspired actually by a colleague of mine to write on a topic that's super timely for higher ed right now. And I'm like, you know what? Going to gather some research, make some notes, do a podcast, and I'll come back to it. And I'll let you know how that works out, because I'm used to doing the burst idea. And this has been proven hands down to be the better way. And also, the other part of that, which I have been very good at, actually, and I'm a work in progress with it, but I'm definitely catching on to it, is the celebrating the breadcrumbs. So small wins lead to big success. And my mastermind friends would absolutely stand behind me on this one too, because, and we celebrate these with gratitude. You write one page, you get inspired by the next chapter by somebody some stranger you meet on the subway or something. Just thank you, thank you. And then you got to lead on a phone call. Then you actually make the phone call and you left a message and you were able to leave the message. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Then you actually get your foot in the door, however, with whatever context. And then big thank yous. Even if it did not have an end result, it doesn't make a difference. It went positively, you had exposure, you met the person, whatever. But to be grateful for all these breadcrumbs, and pertaining to this topic, grateful for the progress you've made with the book, with the project, with the whatever, even if you might change it later, you still are moving forward, and be grateful for every single little step, because the universe, whatever thoughts we're having expand. We know that for a neurological fact, right? And the more we respond with gratitude to these small wins, the faster, the more efficient, the more successful we will be in the whole process. That's just how it is. So, okay, yeah. So I would strongly encourage reading Effortless by Greg McKeown. It's excellent. You might want to start with Essentialism, but they both feed into each other. So, all right, there you go. Simplify, 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 simplify. There we go. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the beautiful Northern Vermont. Have a simple day.